Joe Moorhead was the head coach of Mississippi State. I actually got into a Twitter fight with somebody about somebody asked my opinion on a play, and I basically told them, or I gave my opinion. Somebody said I was wrong. I flamed the guy. Moorhead followed me, DM'd me, and said, "Coach, you're right on. Good eye on that." And so we started talking, and then I asked him to come on my podcast. I was on a show called Deep Dive on Defense with USA Football. And after the show, I wanted to get Todd Orlando, who's now the current defensive coordinator at SC. He goes, that's not really his deal, but do you want Don Brown? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want Don Brown. So he hooked me up with Don Brown, and then I was able to use those names. So I went to my third guest, and I'm like, hey, I've had Moorhead and Brown. And then Bud Foster agreed to come on. And then I could say, well, I had Moorhead, Brown, and Foster. And some of it was a public campaign. So Wade Phillips was like, it took me 5 minutes to get him. I wanted to interview Dean Pease, and little did I know Dean Pease' son, his best friend, followed me and said, I can get you, Dean. And that was set up in like 2 days. So, wow. I mean, it's all different. I just sent out a tweet to Bud Foster, then like, come on the podcast, and everybody started retweeting it. He actually followed me and DM'd me like, is this serious? Because people see the name and they're like, you're not serious. And it's
right.
The podcast is serious. But the number 2 episode we had last year, actually the number 1 episode we had last year wasn't Pease, wasn't Phillips. It was a high school coach in Missouri, and he talked about cover 1 for 3 hours, like every iteration of man-free coverage ever.
Wow.
So it's interesting to see, coaches are different, because if you tell somebody something, like most people, and I know I'm that way, if you start talking about something that you don't understand, you just turn it off. But coaches want to understand. Yeah. So I have guys that listen to like 10, 15, listen to one episode 10 or 15 times, because they got to draw it.
Yeah, I never saw defense
very different.
I never looked at defense the way you explained it. Like, you put up situations, which I'm not a football player. I'm a football fan. And I never thought about some of the stuff that defensive players would have to go through. What kind of decision are you going to make, especially as a coordinator? What kind of system are you going to work? What are you going to do? And I think that's the most exciting point. I don't think it's so much the coaches that are there. I think it's the questions you ask that are so impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
football is all situational. I mean, and that's what some Belichick always talks about. Like, everything you do in football is situational. There's very few times in the game where it's 1st and 10 in the middle of the field, the score is tied, in like a sterile environment, so to speak. It used to drive me crazy when I coached in high school, and we would go to these camps, and they wouldn't even move the ball in the hash. 80% of the time, the ball was on the hash mark.
Mm-hmm.
And so that changes everything. Where you are on the field. Are you on the minus 35 or are you on the plus 40? Mm-hmm. On the plus 40, you're going to get a shot play before they get to the red zone. If you're backed up, you're going to get the balls on the 1 yard line coming out. You're going to get hard counts, sneaks, and just deep balls, because if it gets picked off, it's just like a punt. So, we have to train our players. Football is situational. You got to run all these scenarios through your head. You got about 4 seconds to make a decision.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And I'll be honest with you, as somebody who was a fan and was in college and begged my way onto a job in Miami to run tapes in and out of the office to the field, I didn't realize what the hell goes in behind the scenes and like what it takes to coach a football game and put together a game plan. It is so far beyond what I think most people realize. And I'm not trying to be like some elitist. Yeah. I honestly it's fascinating. Even today, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've been doing this. This has been my life. This is my full-time job now. And I'm still blown away by some of the stuff I learned on a day-to-day basis. Like, holy shit, I can't believe that.
I'm sure. And when interviewing Wade Phillips, who to me is one of the greatest of all time, what sort of secrets did he lead on to you? Did he talk at all about,
what has Wade Phillips ever done? Come on.
Yeah. Did you ever talk about, cracking Cam Newton or anything like that? Did he dig into that? That was an impressive show.
No. So the thing about Phillips was I actually did usually I just get on there and we pick a topic and roll, but I did like a quote unquote, like real journalist. Like, I read his book twice. I read every article I could find on him. I did a ton of research. I spent like 4 or 5 days, like really diving deep.
Wow.
So, because I wanted to nail this because I knew it was going to be something that was going to be heard by a lot of people. And what's fascinating about Wade Phillips, and I shit you not true, what he called his blitzes in 1976, which is his first year in the NFL when he was working for his dad at the Houston Oilers, is what he called them last year with the Rams. He has the same terminology. Even Belichick, Saban. You look at there's playbooks floating around. If you guys are, and by the way, if anybody's listening to this, and that's how I really got involved. Is I found the playbooks online and I wanted to understand them. And I was like, and then I started doing a little research and went down a 15-year rabbit hole. But very few people have the same systems and nomenclature. 45 years later, rather. Right. But he is, and he runs his number one pressure in 1976. It was his number one pressure in 2019.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities in Belichick and Phillips in their defensive minds. Is there a reason for that? Is there anything similar about that? Did they learn from each other, or did Belichick copy Phillips? How did that work out?
Well, Belichick coached under his dad or something, didn't he?
Well, so Belichick, one of his first jobs was for Joe Collier, who was with the Broncos, and they ran a 3-4 defense, but and then Wade and his dad, mostly his dad, ran a 3-4 defense. So they were two of the first to really get into the 3-4, but Belichick was about, and really Parcells as well, was about putting big people on the offensive linemen, and Phillips was about moving those guys and planting them. And, Wade talked about on the podcast why you don't see the original Belichick, because Belichick has completely evolved. His defense, like if you watch those games on the Giants in the 80s, the defense you saw then is completely different than now.
Yeah,
what Wade does today is literally still some of the same stuff. And it's because back in the day, you had a 250-pound lineman on a defensive lineman on a 270-pound offensive lineman. Now you have a 280-pound defensive lineman on a 340-pound offensive lineman. Yeah. So lining up head up and trying to kick his ass and play two gaps, you can't do it anymore. You have to have the best lineman on the planet. Well, that's a lot of draft picks and money to put into a group of people that is just responsible for grabbing an offensive lineman.
Right.
Do you think that Giants defense? Do you think that Giants defense would have helped Belichick get into the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I think it would have. I think that would have helped him. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I think having his defense, I mean, the fact that they still won the games that they won without half their team is incredible, I think. I still think this might have been one of his best coaching jobs, which I know most people would kind of roll their eyes and be like, all right, whatever. But, I mean, you lose half your defense and you still are competitive. That's incredible.
Well, I got a question for you. We're just going to call you a defensive coordinator tonight. And if you're a defensive coordinator, who would be the scariest quarterback that you would not want to face?
Mahomes, because he can sit back in the pocket, and then he can also break the pocket and do the things. He can do what Marino did. I'm not comparing them. I'm not saying he's as good in long term, but he can sit back in the pocket and be a pocket passer, and then he can run around and make things happen. And that's when you can break contain all your plans. It's like what did Mike Tyson say? A bully never has a plan when you get punched in the mouth.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the same thing, but it's a defense never has a plan when they break the pocket. I mean, it's all hell breaks loose.
Okay,
yeah,
and
he's a creative guy.
I got another one for you here. Worst defensive moment in history. Like it could be Orlando Pace, I think, getting the ball stripped by Don Beebe.
That was
Leon
Lett.
I always get him confused.
Yeah.
No, it's when fucking Bill Polian got the rules changed in 2003 after the Patriots beat the shit out of the Colts receivers. Crybaby ass Bill Polian got the rules changed where you couldn't touch a guy after 5 yards, and that's really what changed the game.
Wow,
that's a good one.
Wow,
yeah,
a good one.
It's like it kind of stings because I remember that and forgot about it. And yeah, football is different now.
I got another one for you.
Completely different.
Yeah.
If your high scoring defense gave up 56 points this week, would you still be talking shit?
If I had a Super Bowl and was a successful defensive coordinator,
I wasn't asking you.
I would definitely.
I wasn't asking you.
Because I would not be talking shit. No.
All right. We needed an outside voice for that one. That's all.
Listen, my secondary name is not Brando Calrissian, and that's my first name. My secondary name is Easy E, and I'm still talking shit, motherfucker.
I think your second name is Loser. I got one for you. Monty Kiffin.
More power to you, man.
Monty Kiffin's defense with the Bucks or Wade Phillips? Who would you take as a defensive coordinator?
I would take Phillips's I would take Phillips' 2015 Broncos over the Bucks.
Oh well, that's hard to argue. Was that Von Miller? Who are some of the other boys on
Vaughn,
that team?
Marcus Ware,
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Good, that's a good call.
Those
That's
guys
a
were
tough one.
studs.
Bailey wasn't on that team then, was he? He was back
They
there.
shut down corners back then, didn't they?
Yeah.
Was that Talib? Was that back in
yeah.
there? Or
That was
some-
Talib
Yeah,
went a
back
lot
then,
of places
corners.
and won besides
Yeah,
the Bucks.
Champ was gone. Harris was there. Akeem Talib.
Well, I was just saying the old Monty Kiffin was a good defensive coordinator for the Bucks. I mean, he had the
absolutely.
4-3 cover 2 dialed in with Brooks as a linebacker, Lynch as a safety, Dexter Jackson as a safety, Ronde Barber as a corner, and the line was just stacked. Warren Snap, Booger McFarland,
Well,
Julius Peppers.
I got a little history for you.
That was legit.
I got a little history for you. So my mentor played for Monty in Arkansas in the late 70s, and he invented the Tampa 2 coverage back then, and they used to call it 2 Mike Middle.
Oh,
so there's
man.
a good, if you're ever on Jeopardy, there you go. 2 Mike Middle. And he also used to call the Will linebacker the Wanda, because he wanted to have male names were strong, weak names, like weak side was female names. So it was the Sam, the Mike, and the Wanda.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
There you go.
sexist. So sexist.
So what? So help us out with something, Voss, that I've always wondered. Why are they always yelling Green 18 and shit like that? What are they trying to tell the defense?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you. Why are they yelling what now?
Why are they always yelling shit like Omaha? Are they trying to go home? Green 18. Is that telling his wife he wants some more lemonade?
He's a defensive coordinator.
I know, but that means he's got to know these things.
Oh, I mean, I'm starting an offensive podcast, so I've had to take the deep dive on offense. So some of them are kills. So there's a couple different things. One, when you're saying colors, it's usually you're giving a live tag to a play.
Okay.
So green 18 might be like, okay, we're going to run stretch right, because that would be 18 would be usually wide zone right.
Okay.
In the numbering system. There's different numbering systems, but 8.
Okay.
When you're in one back, a lot of people start those plays with 1s. You may have a kill. So you might kill a play to another play. One thing that Shanahan does is he calls canning plays. So he'll call, a drop back pass, 97 stretch, which would be like a 2-back wide zone play. And so he'll come up to they'll call 2 plays. They'll come to the line. And basically what they're going to say in that situation is we're going to call the pass unless he cans it or kills it. And then we'll go to the second play. So they'll come up like it's, 2-jet flanker drive. I come up to the line. I see the look. I go, can. The offensive line knows, okay, we're going to the second play without having to say anything else.
Okay.
I would. One of my favorite one though is Peyton Manning. Omaha. Oh, that's when it started for me. Started to click that what they were actually calling off and doing silly handshakes.
Yeah. Do you remember that commercial where he's like, "Cut that meat, cut"? But they're doing all the different chants. Those are the best.
Right so when you say that, like when you say kill plays, what that reminded me of is like being again going back to baseball, being a lifelong baseball player.
Yep.
So your third base coach may give you the signal for bunt, stealing second, hit away, and give you like 10 different signs.
Did he touch himself?
until he gives you the one sign that the team knows. As soon as he does that sign, that means
wipe it away.
Now here's what the play is.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're doing. He's calling 10 different things, and then he might go to the brim of his cap, and as a hitter, you're looking at this guy. As soon as he goes to the brim of his cap, you go, okay, now here's the sign. So he's giving you all kinds of stuff, and all that is just throwing everybody off until he starts the actual sign.
Right.
Everybody.
Exactly.
See
that a lot. You'll see that a lot with kills. You'll see that a lot with the colors usually, because you'll have a live color. So they'll go, red 18, green 46, and whenever they'll know between series. Here's one for you that I just learned. This is kind of new. This is really cool, I think. And I might just be a nerd, but what defenses are starting to do, and I don't think this has kind of made its way to the fan land, even a lot of coaches don't know about this, is guys are blitzing based off the point of the center. So you construct a pressure where one guy or another guy is going to go. And so because you picked up on film that the center is pointing to identify the Mike linebacker. So I know LSU did this when Dave Aranda was there, where he's scanning the field and then the center points. So it's simple. It's like grade school. If he points at you, I go. If he points at me, you go. And so on defense, you're never wrong. So then when they did this to Ole Miss had dummy point. Like in the huddle or whatever, they would say, okay, we're going to identify the mic as number 42, but no matter who